Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to everybody else. I am Sergio Bianchi. I am the director of the foundation Agenfor International. This is a conference to introduce some of the results we got through two projects. One research project called Man Before Art, and first of all, the project SAFE, led by the Italian Ministry of Justice. So basically, SAFE is a project funded by the DG Justice and focusing on the relation between radicalization and the justice sector. How do we deal with radicalized individuals in prison, considering some aspects of their radicalization dynamics? First of all, the fact that radicalization is not a crime. Therefore, traditional investigations are very difficult when we deal with radical individuals. We have to do with so-called risk indicators. Therefore, the project adopted a double approach. From one side, we decided to focus on the judicial dimension, so the legal framework, to which extent police and judiciary are competent to deal with radicalization cases, and how to exchange information from a legal point of view. And for this reason, we produced a manual for judges and legal practitioners. You can find this quite important document, because I think it's one of the first documents on this specific topic of radicalization from a judicial point of view. But second one, we consider also technical aspects, considering that the prison environment is full of digital data today, and during the traditional observation, we are somehow forced to use new data, how to combine technologies in the observation of radical dynamics, in the analysis of risk indicators. Let me give you a very simple example. Today, a lot of phone calls of inmates and their relatives, their people with them they have a connection, are done through Skype or through specific chat and applications, particularly in COVID. Good morning, Marilu. So one of the points is how do we deal with data? How do we deal with data coming from cameras and so on? For this reason, we develop a number of we develop a laboratory, a forensic laboratory to test technologies. Now, luckily we have Marilu online, so I will pass, I give the floor to Marilu so that she will make an introduction to the project. Please, Marilu.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. In this first section of our project final conference, before giving the floor to the speakers, I would like to explain briefly the aim of SAFE project, the origins and the objectives. SAFE, as the start date of the project, is January 2018, and will end next January on the 14th. The consortium is composed by public bodies, universities, and research centers. As the Italian Ministry of Justice, that is the project leader of the project, Bulgaria, Spain, Germany, Agenfor International from Milan, the Czech Republic, Greece, and Romania. The project is founded obviously by the European Union and follows two previous European projects, DERAD, that has been valued by the European Council of Europe as best practice, and training aid. The main topic is the violent extremism, considered an increasing phenomenon, above all in environments like prison. SAFE focuses on two main purposes. First of all, support prison and probation staff in the execution of sentences, and second, support judges to pronounce informed decision sentencings on cases of radicalization at all stages of the procedures. Furthermore, the SAFE project is meant to develop an innovative training activities of a very high level in order to train law enforcement agencies to counter violent radicalization and terror-related crimes. It is within this framework that we started debating the potential of innovative technologies to train professionals, and we finally developed virtual reality. What is the virtual reality as a training prototype which will be presented today? I really, what I can say is that I hope you really enjoy our webinar, and please don't forget to follow SAFE on LinkedIn and register for our next webinar that will be held on the 16th of December on this platform. The topic of the next webinar is the use of technologies to prevent crimes in prison. This is all from my side. Now I give the floor to our moderator, Dr. Sergio Bianchi. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilu. I replace Patrick, who has a personal problem yesterday,
okay.
so sorry for that. Let me give you a brief presentation of what is the forensic lab we developed within the SAFE project. So one of the problems we had, as I mentioned before, is to try to identify technologies supporting the prison observation. How can we analyze the context, the connection of people under radicalization risk, considering that radicalization is not a crime? Therefore, we are somehow obliged to follow rules of the GDPR or police directives in case of investigation. What type of technologies, what type of data can we gather in order to reinforce our analysis and our investigative capacity? How can we have a dialogue with internal and external police forces or intelligence agencies, and so on? So based upon that, we established a test lab within the penitentiary administration of Padova, covering 16 prison departments, through which we tested a number of forensic technologies, ranging from drones, because we noticed that drones are a serious threat within the prison administration, delivering contraband goods, delivering SIM, delivering phones, and so on. Then what type of data source do we have? How can we manage data contained in micro devices available within prisons, contraband micro devices or legitimate micro devices modified within prison, and so on? So the lab was very successful. We acquired license. We tested the technology, we trained the police forces, and was very successful because today this technology lab has been moved from the territorial level, so from Padova, to the central administration by the NIC, the Central Investigative Nucleus, and represent the basis of a new approach to investigations by prison police, thanks to the inter-regional administration of Padova. Within this framework, we tried also to identify new technology for training. Among the new technologies, of course, we develop one online platform, Hermes, which is today the platform of the Ministry of Justice, in order to deliver online training. But parallel to this, we decided to enter into the field of new training technologies, more immersive, because the topic is quite complicated to be managed, to be delivered when you are not in presence. And even when you are in presence, it's very, very difficult to carry out exercises, to carry out real environmental tests. So in real testing, real environment, exercises in real environments, if you don't have the comprehensive technologies to do it. So we decided within this project to develop a new training model, which we call blended virtual reality. Serena will explain you what is blended virtual reality, what are the results we achieved in terms of technologies, platforms, in terms of contents, and in terms of modality to deliver it. Basically, we put together all the experience gained through the projects, the RAD and Training Aid, previous project, as Marilu mentioned, and the new SAFE project. And this will bring the prison administration to a new horizon, because what you will discover today in this short presentation is something really interesting. So I give the floor to Serena now, stopping talking and having the opportunity to see some practical example of this training methodology. Please consider that you will see today only one part of the results, and you don't have headsets, unfortunately. Otherwise, you would navigate with us in a complete different setup. But however, this technology is connected to other important technologies like OSINT technologies, data extraction from telephones, telephone analysis, cell analysis, and so on. So these all represent a single package. And this is, I think, one of the secrets of the success of this project, the capability to overcome the data fragmentation and the fragmentation among the different technologies. So thank you for being here, and please, Serena, I give to you the floor.
First of all, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for inviting us here and taking part in this webinar. As Sergio mentioned, we will go now a little bit more in deep on what has been developed within the SAFE framework with virtual reality trainings and the products that we have developed. I will do a very quick introduction on Agenfor International Foundation for those who may not know us. Sorry, I think I'm having some issues with sharing screen. Okay, good. Agenfor International Foundation, who is of course partner within SAFE project, is specialized in participatory security, international law, human rights, but also digital and drone forensics. So we have been dealing in the last 20 years in different EU-funded projects on radicalization, counterterrorism, and of course innovative technologies. As Sergio was mentioning already before, Agenfor was involved and is still involved within the Experimental Forensic Lab of Padua, which is called LPEF, and it is specialized in building innovative technologies such as mobile and forensic extractions and analysis, but also fake documents, drones, counter-drone solution, and of course virtual reality solutions. So lately, we have been dealing with this kind of new technologies on the national level, but also outside Italy. Our last field of development from Agenfor International is, of course, the training session. We have been carrying out several training within European projects, but also national projects on a national level and EU-wide. And now, thanks to the JSAFE project, in cooperation with other EU-funded projects, we have developed an innovative solution in order to deliver training, seeing also the risks related to this new pandemic of COVID-19. So in order to overcome these issues, we have developed new methodologies within the training sessions. Here, some of the projects we are involved in, they are not all of them, but just some, just to give you an idea where we are operating and how, where we are involved. I would say that we start directly with the content of this presentation. We will be presenting, first of all, the advantages of virtual reality for training. So why have we decided to develop this kind of strategy? As Sergio was mentioning before, the methodology used by Agenfor in order to deliver the training, which is called blended solutions. So we'll give a brief overview of what is meant by it. Then we'll go a little bit more in deep on the products we have developed for forensics, but also for radicalization within prison. I would now give directly the floor to my colleague Zvi, who is working with us in for delivering the virtual reality trainings, and who will give us a little bit of overview on the benefits of virtual reality for training. So please, Zvi.
Thank you very much, Serena, and hi everyone, and thank you for joining us. I will be happy to start with the definition of the VR. Just a second. Okay, we're in the right spot. So, virtual reality refers to a computer-generated simulation in which a person can interact with an artificial three-dimensional environment using electronic devices fitted with sensors. In the simulated artificial environment, the user is able to have realistic immersive experience. And in other words, simply we're wearing a VR headset and immersed into the content. Something is really important in the VR. The VR rules have really changed. And now instead of looking at the content, you are the content and you can affect the scene and interact with it. Now we're going to raise a few points that give us the advantages of the VR. So first of all, I want to talk about the enhance the performance. And the enhance of the performance, as you can read in the presentation, but I want to give you an example. We took the recent experiment that took two peoples and asked them to perform a surgery on a human bone. One got only traditional training, such as books and guidance, and the second got the same, plus VR tutorial. And he achieved 50% less time performing the task, which is giving the basic of trying to make it before he go to perform the task. The second point is mistake become opportunities, and everyone knows that a failing task is really frightening a lot of trainees. But when we're talking about VR, we want them to try to fail and gain more confidence by doing mistakes. And by doing mistakes, they actually learn more from their mistakes. It's very, very important to give them the option to make these mistakes. And you can see it also on kids that everyone tell them, don't do that, something will happen to you. And in VR, we want them to make these mistakes. Okay, so next I want to talk about the simulation of the real environment, which is very important point. We will focus on a complex and high-risk scenarios, like a prison riot, or if we want to, let's say, talk about the terror attack. In VR, we can enlighten and emphasize the senses and bind them to the trainee's emotion. This is something that we can't really do in the real world, and it will be very hard to understand if you never try VR before, but it feels like being in the VR atmosphere or like being in a movie. you get all the senses from the environment. And also a measure point is that it's really cost effective. Okay, it's a measure advantages. Let's think about the costs related to the production of the environments in the real world. Let's say actors, effects, space, decoration, all of those things. Next point that I want to talk about is the learning by doing. And as a known theory taken from the educational field, it's VRs offer a hands-on with almost no boundaries. You know, great researchers before me mentioned that the student must be read, write, and discuss, which is related to a knowledge skills and attitude. And in the VR, trainees become more problem solver. They get higher skills like analyzing, synthesis, and even evaluating the situation by doing all those things in the VR. The next point will be measurable data. Data is everything. All of us know that. And it is pretty straightforward. We can set benchmarks. We can analyzing, processing, get immediate feedbacks. We can even reperform and then do a comparison between both performance, which is very important for the trainee. And we can easily and automatically customize the learning process itself. Okay, machine learning. Machine learning is it's a newer version of the data, and I think it's the most advanced tool that that not only collecting data. It's more important, it's also reduce the judgment and the subjective first impression that we have. And we know that all humans tend to use prejudice, and we can't let it go. But the machine learning can do everything by himself, and you can learn the machine what do you want from him. And the machine learning can also do things that the human can do, like analyze body movements, analyze eye movements. The machine can learn 24/7, and he don't need even to drink. And of course, all the data eventually reduce dramatically the waste of resources. Okay, so let's talk about the serious gaming component, which is really important for the trainer and the trainees to understand and educate. It starts all the time with the entertainment, but revolutionizing the traditional methodology of learning. In the history, as you remember, we started with a board and then a video, and maybe moved to an open environment. And then now we have everything together in the virtual reality. And in the virtual reality, we can bring more interesting to the learner. We can have them with more satisfaction. They can gain more information, and the whole process is more efficient at the end. Okay, for the unrealistic characters and gaming, it's really interesting because it's open our minds, and everyone can think about an example. I all the time think about a nice example of a chess board. Instead of holding the chess tools and play on the board, you can imagine that everyone is a chess tool, and by walking on the board, it's really changed the whole environment and your mind inside the game, and give you much more opportunities as a player on the board. And at last, the gaming methodology of what would happen if. Okay, this is something letting the participants to choose what they're going to do in the games, their characteristics, and how the game will end or not ends. And this is something that can happen only in the serious gaming, and it can give also more opportunities as the end results for yourself and your group. I think we finished this part, and I can bring back the floor to Serena, and thank you very much for everyone.
So thank you, Tzvi. We continue our presentation, as mentioned before, with the new solutions we have implemented based also on what Tzvi was highlighting so far. So within the JSAFE, we have applied new solution for delivering training, which is called Blended. Why blended? Because it basically combines different methodology of training together. First of all, of course, the new immersive VR trainings, so the use of virtual reality equipment in order to deliver training, combined, of course, with the serious gaming, which was right now highlighted by Tzvi, but also a 360 immersive learning environment technology. Which is, again, a virtual reality environment where people can actually enter into the virtual reality environment and feel and sense things and see, of course, what is happening around. In the 360 technology, the trainees are less active, so the engagement is not at the same level of virtual reality, but still they are immersed within a completely new virtual scenario. To that, we have added the more traditional way of delivering training, which is the synchronic and asynchronous training delivery. As mentioned before by Sergio, we have developed through the Raden Training Gate project first, and then JSAFE and other European project e-learning platform called Hermes, which counts now more than 3,000 participants from law enforcement and private sector. It is already populated with a lot of material coming from the further previous experience on radicalization, on forensic, on data and data protection and privacy. And of course, it is extremely important to combine this more traditional technology to the virtual reality, because there people can, first of all, have a synchronic lesson, meaning that the trainer is available for the trainees in order to ask questions or to have a forum for conversation. But of course, also as asynchronous, meaning that we uploaded a lot of material which can be recorded video or simply a repository for all the material which become then available for the trainees. So this combination of new innovative technology for the, let's call it learning by doing approach with virtual reality as immersive environment, together with a more traditional way of synchronic and asynchronous training delivery. To that, we are confident that soon we will be able also to deliver some traditional face-to-face lessons if COVID is going to allow us, hopefully, which is always a fundamental part of training from our experience. Now let's go a little bit more in deep of what we have produced as product within the JSAFE project. We have created 3 or better 4 courses, modules. One is a module on mobile digital extraction from mobile phones, so more forensic oriented. The second one is a module on radicalization processes within prison. And the third one is a module on data surveillance. I will then explain also a little bit the first one, which I left aside. So let's start with the digital forensics and virtual reality. This course is a tailor-made product, which has been thought in order to train prison staff, penitentiary police staff, to search for a mobile device within a cell in a prison. The whole environment has been reproduced based on the prison of Padua in Italy, so it is extremely real also. And what we ask the trainees to do within this environment is to carry out some specific exercises and tasks in order to understand, first of all, the importance of the forensic chain for gathering the data from a mobile device, but also to practically do step by step all the actions which are aimed in maintaining the integrity of the data. As you probably know, it is extremely important within the forensic chain to pursue and carry out the activities in some specific ways, because otherwise all the electronic devices that we found, which can be smartphones, which can be drones or computers, they risk, if we do the wrong actions at the beginning of the chain, we risk to break the data, which are not analyzable and they cannot be extracted anymore. So we have created this module in order to first create awareness, but also to learning by doing exercises, by interacting virtually with a mobile device in order to understand what are the right and the wrong action. Of course, as Svi was saying, that has a major impact on the data, because every single action which is performed within the virtual reality can be collected and analyzed. That helps a lot in the phase of drafting best practice, for example, or guidelines. As we were mentioning before, we prepared a forensic manual, which is very innovative, because it harmonized the actions within the forensic chain from a European level. And in order to do so, we also have the second component, which is trying it out and seeing what are the actions, the most common wrong or best actions done on an operational level. So here's some pictures. Unfortunately, we weren't able to provide every one of you a headset. We have anyway prepared a video if you are interested to know a little bit more about our products. I will skip now the digital forensic, which is more detailed on a technical issues of the chain of custody. And I will go directly to the second module we have developed with these, which is the radicalization process within a prison environment. Again, we have recreated the prison environment in Padua, of the prison of Padua. This module is based on a video production done by the Italian Ministry of Justice and Agenfor in cooperation, based on a real story of a radicalized individual within a prison, in order to understand all the radicalization pathway of the individual within the prison, and put the officer in a position to understand and collect risk indicators. A very interesting point, in my opinion, for this specific course is that it is developed within a so-called virtual reality multiplayer platform. What does it mean? It means that as soon as we put the headset on and we enter into the virtual environment, all the participants and all the trainees are able to physically interact with each other, even if they are in a very different geographical distances. So I'm in Italy as example, and my colleagues are in Switzerland or Germany or Israel or wherever. And as soon as we put the headset on and we enter into the virtual environment, we are virtually all together. And we can watch together videos, we can perform interactive exercises, we can compete against each other, which is the serious gaming component, to enhance even more the usability of the tool. So participants in these, of course, last but not least, we can speak to each other, we can talk to each other in the virtual environment, as we would be all together, basically. In this course, participants are asked to move around several different environments, which can be a cell or infirmary, the country yard, the garden, all recreated from the real world. And they go around all the environments looking for different key elements which help them to understand the radicalization process. These elements are then collected and analyzed by the participant through some very specific interactive exercises, which are thought to compete. The participants are taught to compete against each other to gather more points, to think quicker about solutions also, and of course to apply the knowledge they have from the daily work. Then we have developed another course, which is making use again of the multiplayer platform, which is the data surveillance. This course is a little bit a bridging course between the module of radicalization and the forensic one, because it recreates again a prison environment, since we are in the frame of SAFE, and the trainees, the prison staff, are asked to look around for data sources in order to identify the huge amount of data sources around us. That helps us, of course, first of all, to introduce the module on forensics, but on the other side, to create awareness of the huge amount of data sources we have inside of the prison environment, of course, but also outside. And by knowing that, also to be more careful with how to deal with this kind of data. What can we get out from these devices? Because many times the devices are not just tools which allow us to communicate to each other, but also they are container for extremely important information which can be analyzed and collected if dealt in the right way from the very first moment. The last course, which I was mentioning before, are actually some tutorials which helps the trainees to get into the digitalization process. As we know, virtual reality is very present nowadays already, but still we experience that it helps always to let the trainees familiarize a little bit with this new equipment. So therefore, we have created first a tutorial which allows the trainees to understand how to use the equipment, how to use the controllers as example, what it means to be a tool in a virtual environment, where are my boundaries, what can I do, what can I not do. And it is extremely important to, that's why I wanted to highlight it also, it is extremely important to have a successful training if the people are aware on how to use, of course, the equipment they have. The other tutorial or the other module we have created is again in multiplayer, because I was mentioning before, this is a very innovative tool to get in touch with each other in a virtual world. So we have created an environment where they can familiarize a little bit with the equipment, with the other participants, understand how to walk around, how to pass each other objects. They can play chess, they can play basketball, and they can talk to each other. So getting a little bit more familiar with this innovative tool. So that's what we have so far developed within SAFE. Of course, the virtual reality and serious gaming are a tool in order to deliver content, and they are extremely customizable. So we can shape this product based on the needs of the people we have in front of us. What we have extracted from the experience we had with the virtual reality so far, so what are the results and benefits? Zvi was mentioning already some of them before, but from a real first-hand experience, we saw that the virtual reality allows a high level of situational awareness. So trainees are, if we think about emergency situation, which can be very interesting for law enforcement agencies, where they have to perform under stress, under dangerous situations. First of all, we can see how people actually react, as I was saying before, but also extract some important analysis which allow to understand what are the best practices from it to take out from it. Of course, that allows also a big benefit in terms of costs. Again, if we think about recreating an emergency situation such a prison riot, recreating in a physical war would be extremely expensive and very tough also to recreate the sensations and emotions around such a dangerous and hostile situation. This is, of course, feasible in virtual reality. And of course, as we can think spontaneously, it has a very big impact on the cost and the timing. Last point is the new opportunity which is created by the virtual reality, and that one, this point is very important in my opinion now for during the COVID-19 times. We need to find solutions in order to overcome the problem of not being able to travel anymore, not to interact with each other anymore, which is extremely important, especially by the training sessions. So this huge impact of being in virtual reality together and have the possibility to interact, creating groups, work on interactive exercises together, even compete sometimes, had a very big impact on the training session and the training process of the trainees. First of all, they never lost focus. They are always engaged, and by being engaged, they gather and absorb many information as they would in a traditional training session. And that's in our perspective the future of trainings, which we, thanks to the SAFE project, but also the COVID-19 pandemic, we had the possibility to understand and to use. So it was a great opportunity. A very last overview, because I think we are running out of time, is about the ongoing updates and future step. On the left side, there are some technical upgrades we are doing, which are extremely interesting, and we can also say a couple of words about it. And on the other side, on the right side, we have the future steps and future projects we are about to develop. First of all, which I will briefly mention, just to let you understand the potential of this tool. First of all, of course, expanding the course on radicalization outside the prison borders to the whole society. Is same for the data surveillance, so to where to spot data sources around us. We are implementing virtual reality forensic crime scene, but also European investigation order and European arrest and warrant in virtual reality to train judiciary staff. Courses on maritime navigator, drone navigator, fake documents, identification of fake documents, and of course, digital forensic and open source intelligence. Those are our future projects in the frame of either European project or within the framework agreement, which we just had together with CIPOL. And we are looking forward to exploit 200% the potentiality of this tool. If we have time and see what to say, a couple of words about the technical implementation we are working on, maybe?
Yes, we can if we have time. I would suggest to talk about two main. Cloud migration and web integration is things that maybe not visible to everyone. So we talked about the hyperreality and the sensors, which is very, very important in terms of immersion. And immersion is one of the phrases you will hear at most in VR, as much as you more immersed in the content. So it's like we're talking about, I don't know, cameras that everyone's speaking about how many pixels they have. So in virtual reality, everyone trying to make you more immersed, and this hyper reality is actually taking the real world and put it inside the virtual one. And we have also a link here, but I can give you an example of a glass. Let's say I'm holding a glass in my hand in the real world. but in the virtual world, I can see it like a cup of coffee. I can change it to whatever I want. Okay, and this is called a hyperreality, to integrate real objects in the virtual world. And the second thing is the haptics. The haptics giving you more senses in the virtual world, because we are limited. We can't really smell in the virtual world the things that we can smell in the real world, but this gap can be closed by a lot of things that people working on right now, and there are companies that giving us the options to add even smell and feelings. Like if you hit in the virtual world, you can feel it without going to a hospital somehow, but you can get a shot and and feel it in your body, and even you can feel sounds. Okay, so it gets you more immersed into the scene. I think this is the most important part in the virtual reality, and also when you're looking at the future.
So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I think we ran a little bit out of time, but if you want, we can provide you also some material, extra materials, such as article we have written about the virtual reality in the frame of training, and of course a video showing a little bit more closer the products we have developed.
Okay, thank you very much. We are on time, 10 minutes delay, but however, I think very well done. Now, as you probably understood, we have now a design team, a technical design team, to design new products, as Serena described you in the presentation. We have the technologies to do it, multiplayer platform and different software to transform traditional courses into virtual reality blended courses. But what is even more important, we have now experience in real environments within prisons and within judiciary environments with judges, lawyers, and so on. And this is extremely important, we have a network of training centers across Europe, in Italy, in Germany, in Mission, in Romania, in Bulgaria, in the Czech Republic, and in Greece. And we are expanding this network through EU funds in other countries, because we have requests from Northern Germany, from the police in Northern Germany. We have requests from Malta, Portugal, Holland, Belgium, Spain, and so on. So we think that we will be able quite soon to complete a network of European VR training centers across Europe, where people can go to test virtual reality, or to have virtual reality courses with a headset. Now, there are different experiences in Europe in this field of virtual reality, because it's for sure the future. And for this reason, I give the floor now to Max Hausner, which is project manager of the University of Applied Science for Public Services in Bavaria, so the police training academy. Please, Mark, the floor to you to tell us your experience in this field.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you for having me here. I am very pleased that I was invited to present the benefits and impact of VR training for law enforcement agencies to you today. First of all, let me give a brief outline of my presentation. I will start with a brief introduction to the HFOD, the University of Applied Sciences for Public Service in Bavaria, Department for Policing. At the same time, I will also briefly introduce those who conduct VR trainings at the HFOD. On the one hand, this is my highly esteemed colleague, Sebastian Alatzeder. Some of you will probably already know him, and on the other hand, I am. Then I will offer you an overview of our VR equipment and some of the steps necessary to prepare a VR workplace. Furthermore, I will give a brief insight into the training activities that we have done so far, and this is followed by the main part of my presentation, our experiences with VR trainings with regard to benefits and impact for law enforcement agencies. Finally, I will give a brief assessment of the future potential of VR training. So let's begin with the HFOD and its trainers. Usually there are about 800 students at the campus of the HFOD. Unfortunately, this is currently not the case since Germany is in a lockdown due to the pandemic. Therefore, now not as usual, but online, the HFOD is teaching future higher ranked police officers several subjects. And so let's go straight to my colleague, Dr. Sebastian Allertseder, conducting the VR training together with me. He is one of the lecturers for our students and teaches politics, constitutional law, and internal leadership. At the same time, Sebastian is involved in the research of the HFOD's affiliated research institute. Among other things, he conducts research on topics related to extremism and at the same time teaches these issues. As far as I know, Sebastian is unfortunately currently not present because he's doing his teaching duties. My background is rather only theoretical. I have dealt extensively with the prevention of extremism through education at university and also work on issues related to radicalization at the HFOD's Research Institute. Therefore, we were both very interested when we heard about the plans to conduct such trainings using VR technologies. Now I will briefly talk about our experience with setting up devices and preparing for VR trainings. It started with Agenfor informing us of the minimum technical requirements for the devices that are needed to operate the software components developed. I have to admit, I had no experience at all with VR devices and their use. But it seems the selection of such devices is quite simple based on the information we have received from Agenfor and does not require any special technical knowledge. As you can see in this picture, we have ordered several Hewlett-Packard workstations and HTC Vive Pro VR sets for our training purposes. If you have any questions about the specifications, please feel free to contact me anytime, and I'm also sure that the Agenfor team will be happy to advise you on this if you're planning to conduct VR trainings. The question arises to what extent setting up the VR workstations is a challenge. To be honest, despite a lack of experience with such devices, this was comparatively easy and uncomplicated. Well, also no outstanding skills are required for this either. All in all, neither the preparation nor the installation of VR devices and workstations is a particular challenge and can be carried out even with only rudimentary technical knowledge. Now that I have explained the general conditions, so to speak, we come to the activities that we have carried out so far. We tested all of the Agenfor products, which Serena just introduced to you. As I have already shown, Germany is in a lockdown right now. This has been tightened step by step in the past month, and there is currently no end in sight. For this reason, our ability to act for training has always been more or less restricted. And because of that, we are currently dependent on training only internal members of the HFOD, unfortunately. These are at first our students. As already mentioned, they are members of the Bavarian law enforcement, namely police officers and some officials from the Bavarian State Office for the Protection of the Constitution, one of Germany's intelligence agencies. Some time ago, we had the opportunity to test early versions of the VR software with students, but unfortunately, this is currently no longer possible due to the restrictions because of the pandemic in Bavaria. Second, the lecturers and teachers at our university are trained. The majority of those are high-ranked and experienced police officers. Finally, the members of the Research Institute are to be named as trainees. These are, well, at our institute, various scientific disciplines and also high-ranked police officers are represented. This training for police officers and experts for security research quickly showed that using VR is generally not a problem at all for users. While almost none of our trainees had any previous experiences with VR, they were all able to use the software surprisingly quickly and without extensive assistance. I was very surprised at how well the software is designed and also how well this was accepted by our test subjects. Furthermore, I will now share our experiences on the benefits and impacts of VR training for law enforcement agencies. First of all, it should be mentioned that less professional teachers are required for VR training. My colleague Sebastian can be seen in the background of the slide and while he is an expert on radicalization processes, his expertise was at best needed for support while being a trainer using Agenfor's multiplayer on radicalization. This is a big advantage compared to conventional methods of teaching. When, for example, Sebastian teaches a class in the conventional way, his expertise is almost always required and he has to provide the main content and input himself. VR trainings relieve this requirement to a certain extent. The software itself contains all the necessary information. As a result, it is even conceivable that a training course could be carried out by someone who has no special knowledge of the topic. Of course, it is desirable that this is not the case, but that the lecturer the trainer is familiar with the topic beyond the software in order to be able to provide additional information and, if necessary, to answer questions. Ultimately, however, this is not absolutely necessary and makes teaching easier for the teacher, regardless of whether he's an expert on this topic or not. The second advantage of VR trainings for law enforcement agencies is the possibility of doing them remotely, not locally. This expands the possibility of performing trainings many times over. On the one hand, more experts can be brought in. Let's think a bit further than the example of radicalization processes used so far. If VR technology is used, for example, to train operational tactics or investigative techniques, a wide variety of experts can be used to work together and thus produce considerable added value for all those involved. On the other hand, more trainees can take part. We are certainly still at an early stage of VR technology, but it must be assumed that both the quality and the quantity of these devices will increase very quickly. But this is also currently an advantage, even while only a few LEAs, like Sergio just told you, have VR devices. It does not matter whether the trainer, is in Sardinia, while all participants in the training are somewhere across the mainland of Europe, provided that they have access to a VR device. Of course, this seems particularly useful in times of pandemic, since targeted training is easily possible without direct contact. But I think this will certainly remain an integral advantage after the pandemic, as its effectiveness will increasingly grow as the availability of VR devices increases. Well, the question arises to what extent I am right that VR will spread steadily while devices are not quite cheap. VR set currently costs between 700 and 1,200 euros, depending on the model. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you need high performance, comparably expensive computers. On the one hand, I would argue that the prices for such devices are expected to fall increasingly. On the other hand, it can be assumed that costs can already be saved by using VR technology for training. I mentioned that fewer professional trainers are needed. That's a cost saving. I also mentioned that such training courses can be carried out remotely, another cost saving, as there are no travel costs for teachers and trainees. Certainly, this does not have a direct or immediate effect, but if you compare the one-time purchase of VR equipment with multiple travel costs over years, the costs outweigh each other very quickly. Another cost saving is the following benefit from training via VR. Immersion in areas that are otherwise not available also saves costs by eliminating the need for travel and the procurement of access to these areas. Agenfor's prison search software is a very good example of this. On this PowerPoint slide, you can see my colleague Thorsten, an expert on security-related topics, who is currently examining the bathroom of a prison cell. Normally, it would be very difficult and time-consuming to organize that he or any other employee or officer of the Bavarian police is trained in a real prison environment. Again, we have to remember that VR software for such purposes is still in a very early stage. In any case, it is conceivable to use this type of technology for situations that can hardly be represented normally, be it tactics, for example, highly dangerous situations, or investigative techniques. The possibilities are nothing but unlimited. For a long time, there has been an argument in research on education about how content can be best conveyed. There does not seem to be a general answer. Rather, the success of this depends very much on the individual. In general, however, it can be stated that the approach of choosing as many access methods as possible is usually by far the best of all options. While conventional teaching is based on the reception of texts, images, depictions, and speech, VR training can use various access methods to disseminate and experience contents in a much more extensive way. Here, the trainee immerses himself in a certain environment and experiences it way more extensively. He moves, he listens, he reads, he touches, and he interacts, just to mention a few. It would not be expedient and also not my expertise to go deeper into the psychology of learning. But one thing is certain. In this way, through immersive VR training, the understandability of content and the learning results can be significantly increased. Last but not least, probably the most important of all advantages of VR training, the, as we call it, gaming effect, which not least emerged from this immersive environment. No matter with whom we tested the VR products from Agenfor, we could find the same attraction with all of our test subjects. The background of the respective trainee plays no role at all. Whether they have experience with video games is completely irrelevant. I have to admit that I have experience with video games. Nevertheless, the software from Agenfor, for example, differs significantly from conventional video games in many ways, which is why they are rightly called serious gaming. In contrast to conventional games, the focus of the VR software is not on actions per se, but on the learning effect. Nevertheless, this attraction could be seen in all trainees. I cannot tell without a doubt why this is the case, but I suspect that the main reason for this is the ease of use, the immersiveness, and also the large scope of interaction. Well then, what is the effect of this? Among other things, this certainly leads to better learning outcomes based on improved attention and a greater willingness to learn. last but not least, the photo in the background is exemplary. 3 political scientists, all of them familiar with radicalization processes and the staircase model of radicalization according to Mogadam used here, were enthusiastic about being taught on this again while they are already so familiar with it. I have now told you a lot about our experiences with VR trainings. Of course, it should be noted that all of the benefits mentioned are subjective observations and have not yet been empirically tested. Fortunately, Agenfor is currently working on a comprehensive evaluation of the training so that the benefits and impacts of VR training for law enforcement agencies can be determined as objectively as possible. Finally, I would like to briefly note the future potential of VR training for law enforcement agencies. To be honest, I cannot say for sure. However, JSAFE laid a cornerstone and at the same time proved that this technology offers countless, if not unlimited possibilities, provided that these are pursued in a targeted manner. The potential of VR is not limited by technology, but rather by the possible lack of willingness to open up to this technology, in my opinion. I became, unfortunately, part of the JSAFE project relatively late, but I'm extremely happy to be one of the first to test and carry out VR trainings and to be able to take part on this decisive step in the further development of the training of law enforcement agencies. Thanks at this point to everyone who made this pilot project possible, which initially opened up the possibilities of this promising technology to us and to law enforcement agencies in general. Thank you all for your attention, and now I'll give the floor back to Sergio Bianchi.
Thank you, Max, for your presentation. Of course, we'll pay commission for this endorsement. Targeted manner is the key word, the magic word. Indeed, how to use virtual reality is something going behind the potentiality and the capabilities of the technology, because the divide between traditional gaming and new serious gaming and video gaming and serious training is very, very important. So the collaborative work in this area, exploiting, however, the results of the consumer market, because huge American companies are investing huge amount of money in VR today. They're buying company everywhere, trying to enter into the market, but it is always the consumer market. So from one side, we have to follow the consumer market to see new technologies, new equipment, to decrease the cost and expand the network. On the other hand, on the other side, we have to be very careful in staying out from the consumer market, because that one is a serious specialized market for justice, security, and education. Now, thank you, Max. Thank you to the German Police School. Now, I would like to go back and with the schedule program, we're a little bit late, and give the word to Pia Polacca, project manager of the Criminal Sanction Agency in Finland. So also Pia has some interesting experience with VR, and we think that in the future we should coordinate and combine better all these experiences. I give the floor to Pia. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm new in the group. My name is Pia Polacca. I'm a project manager in a smart prison project, and I work in the Criminal Sanctions Agency in Finland. And just one moment, I was asking whether you can see my screen now.
Yes, but we cannot see you.
Yeah, I know. I'm having a little bit of a problem, but I hope it's enough if you see my screen. How you think?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I'm going to tell about our VR pilot. We are very in the beginning, so this is probably quite a modest pilot compared to many of your projects, but we've had some promising results, and I was asked to present this model here anyway. So I'm very happy to be with you here today, and I hope to get some new ideas for our pilot too. And we call it virtual reality in rehabilitation because our purpose has been solely on the rehabilitative side of using this new technology. And as I said, I work as a project manager in a Smart Prison project, and I just want to give an overview of the project. There's two targets. So at the same time, the main target has been to build Finland's first so-called smart prison, which is a new women's prison for 100 women inmates, and there's going to be a personal cell device in every cell. And this new prison is going to be a pilot environment for our new digital services. And we are aiming to use the digital services there as part of everyday management, rehabilitation, and interaction between staff and prisoners. On the other hand, there's also the general digital development going on in the Criminal Sanctions Agency. We've been developing digital services portal for joint use workstations in all our units, in all prisons and probation offices, enabling and piloting some new digital services like this VR pilot, and giving digital guidance training to staff so that the staff is able to guide prisoners to use these new digital services. And also, of course, in Finland this year has been challenging because of the COVID-19, but actually it has benefited our project. It has increased the need for digital services in a situation where face-to-face contacts and prison furloughs and family meetings have been very restricted. About the VR pilot, we have piloted it in 3 prisons, and we have included psychologists as assistants. And the aim was to find the kind of prisoners that would most need this kind of service, would benefit from it. So we were looking for the ones that are even more isolated than prisoners in general, cannot participate in many of the daily services inside prison due to many reasons, maybe due to security reasons or risk-related reasons, or due to psychological reasons that they are isolated by their own will, being anxious, depressed, irritated, or otherwise challenged. And the purposes of the project, what we tried to provide with providing these new environments, recreation, relaxation and well-being, motivation and activation, and on the other hand, stimulation and challenge. So we tested a number of free or very low-cost virtual environments that could be downloaded. But then we also worked in collaboration with Tampere University, and they provided us with a so-called virtual forest called Restive. And Tampere University has done research about the effects and the benefits of real nature versus virtual nature. And we've been giving them feedback from prisoners who have used the virtual forest in our prisons. And here you can see this forest is taken from a real Finnish forest. And the idea was that when you are in prison, of course, you have less possibility to spend time in other kind of environments. And this was a way to provide prisoners an alternative to prison environment, and also an alternative to take care of your well-being in a very restricted environment where there are anyway few ways to relax and take care of yourself in this way. And you can see that Tampere University has done some recent research about the physiological and psychological effects of virtual natural environments. And then we also had a selection of other free virtual reality environments, nature and urban landscapes, some hobby activities, and sea environments, even a Buddhist temple, and the kind of a selection of different kind of environments to test with prisoners. And one of the environment was this climbing environment, and this undersea environment was also very popular. And the idea was that we have both relaxing environments, but also some more challenging environments, more stimulating environments, so that on the other hand, you can look for relaxation, or on the other hand, you can look for stimulation if you want. We collected feedback from prisoners about the experiences they had, and we wanted to know about the effects on the feelings and the mindset of prisoners taking part of this experiment, and also about feedback how the program affected their performance in everyday life. Did they notice some effects, and would they like to continue this kind of programs in the future? What kind of programs they would want? Is it more on the relaxation side, or the activity side, or learning, or challenging situations to test? And how would they rate the pilot? And we've seen that the preliminary results are positive. We have given all this feedback to Tampere University for further evaluation. Prisoners have valued the pilot as an alternative to prison reality, a possibility to try and learn new things, support for well-being and relaxation, and a way to confront even challenging situations. Some of the environments we tested on purpose this kind of difficult or scary situations. So this was a way to also make prisoners confront their own fears and kind of inner barriers, so to say. And we also use this kind of pre and post check. So the feelings before the session, and then the post check after the session, to see what kind of effects the experiment would have. And in the end of this year, we are still going to go through the results of the pilot with Tampere University. And next year, we are extending the pilot to the new women's prison, the smart prison I told you about. And we are continuing the collaboration with Tampere University, and they would like to get more results about the physiological and psychological effects of piloting these kind of environments. And questions to you to reflect on, or maybe we can talk about them later in the panel. How much could these kind of environments have effect on prison security by positively affecting challenged and isolated prisoners? And what other somehow concrete or measurable benefits we could find by piloting and continuing the pilot? Especially now that we have psychologists involved, I think there are possibilities to go further, to really use this as part of rehabilitation. And the psychologists' sessions have given a nice extra structure to the VR environments. Instead of just being recreational, there's some kind of a purpose more in the process when psychologists are involved, and we are doing the pre and post check and collecting information about the effects on the feelings and the mindset and the daily daily managing inside prison. If you want to hear about our projects more, there's a recent Business Insider document done this year about the Smart Prison project and prisoners learning AI and also using our virtual reality environments. And thank you for this opportunity to come here to share our little pilot, and I hope to hear more about your experiences and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia, for your presentation. Very interesting. As you see, we jumped from security to recreational and then rehabilitative methodologies. I think that what you presented, Pia, is very interesting for us because we already had the plans to enter into this specific area of rehabilitation and reintegration through VR technologies. Technologies which are used also in the medical field, where some of our partners have already quite in-depth experiences. So I think it is worth to continue this dialogue after these presentations and to find a way to exchange experiences and to test both products from different perspectives with different stakeholders. Really, thank you very much, Pia. Now, because we're out of time, I will give the floor to our last speaker, Dimitros Karapatakis, which is the head of international relations and mission of the Hellenic Police. The Hellenic Police is one of our indirect partner in this operation because they already have through CAMEA, the cooperation with CAMEA, a VR training center. So very interested to hear their experience and to understand what is the future of their activities with VR. Please, Dimitros, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. So please click on the right side for the next one. Yep. Okay. I would like to start saying that there is an increased need for new technologies and innovation in the law enforcement area, also in justice and probation. And that leads to a number of significant developments in all fields regarding VR technologies. Security and justice and criminal proceedings is also no exception in this subject matter. I have prepared a sort of video adding to the conversation before to show the effect why virtual reality, because of the great effect that has both physically and psychologically to the participant. I'm very sure that if you could Google some kind of VR fails, you have a lot of laugh seeing people really feeling that they're losing their balance and fall, or doing this kind of very funny things because they're living in a virtual reality. So that's a great effect. It's very important also from the training perspective, specifically in police training. I would like to be a bit of theoretical and also to explain how adult learning is taking place, basing and referring to the Bloom's taxonomy in case you're not aware of. We have three major elements in this. It's the cognitive, the psychomotor, and the behavioral skills that need to be developed. So in simple words, we can say that what we need in order to provide proper training to an adult is theory, practice, and to reach a stage that this becomes a natural behavior. And of course, the VR technologies and applications in this field, they all they have a great impact in both areas. Both theoretically, you can have really this kind of immersive retention feedback from your training, and also practically, and of course to the level that it becomes a natural behavior. For example, a police control, a traffic control, a house search investigation, etc. I heard the previous speakers, and also I'm grateful from their remarks. I heard the benefits. What are the advantages of this? I would like also to name few. That is cheap, it doesn't cost too much, and of course the level of engagement, the living experience. We heard about this gaming experience. Now we have to talk also about the living experience. Also, it's easier to measure the performance, to monitor and evaluate the performance of the trainee in this, and also correct some mistakes that took place. And of course, it's safe. They do not, this kind of training programs, they do not put you at risk, like in reality, where you have to do, let's say, natural climbing or something in a mountainous terrain or at the sea or in other circumstances. But again, I'm very sure that they have been omissed two major things that you can do with VR technologies. The thing is that you can do impossible things in order to test yourself, impossible that you wouldn't dare to do in the real world. And the second thing is that you can do a lot of mistakes, and I'm talking about serious mistakes. Just to provide an example from my experience, when I had to do basic firearms training with the police academy, there was a scenario in VR where it was a subject that taking out his police badge. There was a traffic control and said, "Hey, I'm police officer, let me show you my badge." And of course, it was a trick because he was an armed suspect and he fired at us during the training. So we had to replay this scenario because we were all dead after this kind of incident. We're too late to react because we believed his words. We're not so cautious. Well, at the second term, this guy really took out his police badge, and we thought that, okay, he's going to take out the gun again. And we really killed him, you know, giving him so many shots. And that was a big lesson to us that we had to be extra cautious. And of course, we made this mistake again and again, that couldn't do it in a real-time training. So there are many advantages. I really would like to focus on these two, that you can do a lot of mistakes, and of course to do the impossible. Imagine these applications specifically in medicine training for future doctors or something, that while operating or surgeries, you can do these kind of massive mistakes to learn from them again and again. So also there are some kind of disadvantages. According to psychologists and studies, some kind of research that also has fallen on our desks, there is a criticism with these kind of techniques because of mostly of the psychological impact, and it somehow confuses this kind of sense of reality while you're outside operating as a police officer, as a judge, a prosecutor, or a probation officer, etc. But really, you make this kind of confusion with your training and in the real world and everything. You overestimate maybe your capabilities and everything. And of course, there is a kind of risk of addiction, like we have in all these kind of new technologies, these immersive technologies, like also with gaming. That's the first part of this presentation. I would like to move slide if possible and speak about the European perspective. And again, there is an increased interest and growth in this sector of new technologies, technological solutions, and specifically VR. Specifically from VR, I have some data to share with you from a recent study. There are more than 1,000 entities, either private, public, governmental entities that are involved in this kind of VR technologies, while the public value, the product value of these investments reaches annually 2020 about 15 billion euros. So you can understand that this is huge. I had also prepared a map for you to show which countries are most, let's say, involved or innovative or engaged in VR technologies in all subject matters of application of VR technologies like medicine, research, and everything. But I cannot do that though for technical reasons, and I'm really sorry about it. But I can share it later if you want. So basically, I would say that there is progress in EU, and of course, there is a strong demand to engage more and more these technologies. Why? Because there is an investment return. So practitioners and professionals of this kind of applications do see an added value if engaging VR technologies, either in many areas like in aerospace, health and medicines, like I refer and write in my presentation, communications also, defense and security. Here is also applied the judicial sector and the probation sector, and prison radicalization, etc. We do have some projects in EU. Education, of course, research, social and cultural issues about cultural diversity programs in Europe, about identity politics, migration issues also. The demand is vast. So while this is important because there is a unique, let's say, circulation of information about VR, the potentials of VR, and of course, the great impact they have on the real world and our jobs and daily lives, there is a kind of triangulation, the interaction between academia and research community that provide actually the studies, the scientific results, and the hints, and of course, the level of practitioners and professionals that are actually applying this, and of course, ended up to consumers that either we're talking about citizens or private sector, public sector, governments, etc., that really regenerate this kind of interaction, giving feedback back to academia and research. And in this kind of triangle of interaction, we can add the significant part of industry that really develops these applications, develop this infrastructure for us to use it, that it's developed constantly day after day. If I remember well, when I was a young cadet in the police academy, VR was something very plain, like a video game with not good analysis. The figures were not so sophisticated, and now we're talking about really this kind of reflection on the real world. You cannot really see the difference, let's say. And all this positive, let's say, impact has been recently regenerated by the COVID-19 effect. The pandemic had brought a lot of bad things to us, and of course threatened the lives of citizens. And I'm very sure that we all have issues with that in our countries and homes and everything. But also, the real part is that it boosted, let's say, technological solutions, like we do this kind of webinar now instead of having a real-time face-to-face workshop. So really generated this kind of part that really engaged, let's say, new technologies. And if we're talking about an era of digitalization that we're living nowadays, I couldn't imagine it without VR. And I would really gladly say from my personal experience, and of course, from my service experience, that the VR evolution is the vehicle for the digital transformation we need to do it today if we want to have to increase capacity at all fields. So that's all within this very strict time frame. I know we're a bit behind in time, but more than glad to answer questions if you might have. So you can just move ahead the slide, please. Yep. And going back. Thank you very much. Apologies for not being able to share this with you. And I'm very open to questions. Thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you, Dimitar, for your presentation. Very interesting. First of all, I noticed some points. First of all, that you don't want to be addicted by VR technologies. And I fully agree. When you spend a couple of hours in VR exercises or in testing new environments, then you have the tendency to cross walls in the reality. This might be a little bit risky, you know? And particularly for policemen, when they think they are in a video game, it's not the proper thing. It's not the proper thing to try to
exactly.
apply the principle of virtual reality. But more interesting also the European dimension, because I'm sure because of studies carried out within other projects that there is a gap of the European wear industry in this field, a field which is extremely dangerous because we produce a lot of data, first of all, through wear exercises, through wear identities, and we need to be sure about the GDPR compliance. A lot of technologies produced in third countries or in the UK today, they risk to be not in line with the European GDPR or with the European Police Directive because of the different cloud systems used. There is a big, strong need to have non-ITAR or technologies in this field, so European and managed in line with the European law. You understand that behaviors, ideas, identities, data are part of the wear system, and therefore I fully appreciate your insistence, your attempt to push on the European dimension for the wear technologies. This is one of the points. So we are at the end, we are a little bit late. I give the floor eventually to Virginia if you want to open for some questions, or if you want to use different chats for that. We have a couple of questions here. Always for Pia. Why the wear pilot? Sorry, I lost the question. Okay, why the wear pilot is currently only used in women prison in Finland? So Pia, the first question for you.
The pilot is in 3 prisons, as I said, at the moment. We started this year in 3 prisons, and they are all men's prisons. And next year we will continue in the men's prison, but also take the new women's prison to the pilot, since it's our latest unit, and we haven't tested yet with women prisoners this program.
The second one, again for Pia, how did you select inmates for the wear testing? What do you think is the best profile? Is there a profiling system for that?
Do you mean that did we somehow profile prisoners to find suitable?
How did you select the inmates?
Yes, we had psychologists involved, and the idea was that the psychologists could look for prisoners who could benefit from this. But also we had active other kind of staff in the unit who were supposed to look for suitable prisoners based on the characteristics I presented. So prisoners who are isolated or who seem to be benefiting from this kind of activities that are not very active otherwise, but or are irritated or anxious, depressed. So to look for prisoners who seem to be not so, whose well-being might need support, and who are enough interested or curious. In one prison, we had a very active staff member, young new staff member, who basically went to the wards and asked from everybody if they would like to try this individually or in groups, and that's up to staff's motivation to motivate prisoners.
Thank you very much, Pia. So I think we're running out of time. Thank you for your participation, really interesting. We will share all the slides if other people have interest. And I thank Marilu for her assistance in this project, which is going to be closed in January, but we will continue this experience. We have other two seminars then. Virginia, maybe you want to have the floor, just giving a very brief introduction of the new seminars in December and in January for the technologies we developed and we tested within the forensic lab.
Absolutely. So there are still 2 webinars to go. One, if you were interested in VR, you certainly will be interested also in the next webinar that will take place next Wednesday on the 16th of December, which is about the use of technologies in the prison system and to prevent crimes. While the 3rd webinar will take place the last day of the project on the 13th of January, and will focus on the guidelines that we developed within the project to support the decision making of judicial staff and practitioners who deal with radicalization cases. If you want to participate, you can go to our website, to GSAFE website, and register. You will also receive an email following up this event with the registration link for the next event. As for the presentation, we are uploading them in this platform, so you can see them among the documents. We also uploaded the article that our developer, Agenfor's developers, wrote concerning the benefits of VR based on the piloting test that we are doing with the prototypes presented today. So thank you very much for attending, and really hope that you will be there as well next Wednesday. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.